This episode is brought to you by State Farm. From your morning podcast to your afternoon playlist, State Farm knows you personalize your entire day, and that's why State Farm helps you personalize your insurance with the State Farm Personal Price Plan. It offers coverage options that help protect what you care about most at an affordable price just for you. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices vary by state. Options selected by customer. Availability and eligibility may vary.
The Knot is where you'll find vendors for every wedding. Floral to fawn over. Cakes you almost don't want to cut. Oh, it looks so good. DJs to drop it to. Venues worthy of your grid. Photographers that make every hour golden hour. Really, vendors for any vibe. With the help of fresh reviews and a few useful filters, you can find your vendors faster than you can say, I do. The Knot Vendor Marketplace. Find vendors for every wedding at theknot.com/audio.
Hello, hockey fans. It is time to brave the wild. It is time to call up your courage and brave the Minnesota Wild. This is episode number 2. Today is Thursday, September the 11th of the year 2008. And it is great to have you with us once again here on thesportstuff.com. And yes, on iTunes is Brave the Wild, available on iTunes as well, and I welcome those of you that may have come from iTunes and encourage you to join thesportstuff.com, to join the message boards. There is a button in the upper right-hand corner that says TSS Boards. Click on that. You will be prompted to sign in or sign up. Please do sign up and join the message boards here on thesportstuff.com, or you could be one of us. You can join in the discussion. There is sections all over the place for every kind of sport pretty much on here, including there's also video games and an anything goes section, so you could even talk politics or stocks or whatever the heck you want. Of course, there's the podcasters section or podcast section near the top, where you will see all 3 of my shows in there. Brave the Wild, Purple Mafia, and Timberwolves Explosion. Do get on those message boards and do some talking with me. But yeah, with that out of the way, I'm going to tell you what we're going to talk about today here on thesportstuff.com. We are going to talk about the Marian Gaborik situation, the ongoing situation with Marian Gaborik, which of course is not resolved. And, it just might not work out. It just might not. We're also going to get into some wild news. We're going to talk about Brent Burns, Kurtis Foster, then some signings in the NHL. Just a couple of, signings that I believe are of interest to you, the hockey fan, and Minnesota Wild or Minnesota fan, however you like to look at it. Of course, we'll read the poll results and get into the newest poll. And with that, real quick though, before we go to break, today is September the 11th. It is the 7-year anniversary from that tragic event that occurred in New York City involving the World Trade Center, or World Trade Centers. 3 buildings collapsed and the others were taken down from the damage. We all have our opinions on that subject, but we will not get into that right now, because the most important thing on this day is to remember those who were lost, including the ones who tried to help those who were lost. And with that, I'm going to give a quick moment of silence. Again, we thank those of you out there who came to the scene and helped those in need on September the 11th. And with that, we will return to talk some hockey. Here on thesportstuff.com, we're bursting in blue with Timberwolves Explosion. Timberwolves fans, your show has arrived at last as we bring in a new era with Al Jefferson, Kevin Love, and Mike Miller. We're available on thesportstuff.com and also available on iTunes. Download and listen to in-depth and detailed coverage of your favorite team. Show your true blue and join this explosion of Timberwolves basketball. And we are back here on Brave the Wild, episode number 2, as mentioned earlier. And, well, we still got to sign our best player, folks. And are we going to sign him? Is he going to get traded? Well, that's the quadrillion-dollar question here with the Minnesota Wild. Of course, losing this guy would be devastating to the organization, to the fans, and just to the NHL, at least around these parts. You know, there's lots of fans in this area. Wisconsin doesn't have a team. Of course, Iowa doesn't. You know, the Dakotas, they're pretty much all Wild fans, or, well, most of them anyway. The majority, I'd say. There might be a couple Blackhawk fans in there somewhere. Shame on you if you are, but no, that's okay. There's an article in the Star Tribune, recently written September 10th, that would have been yesterday, by Michael Russo, the main Minnesota Wild reporter in the Star Tribune. Headline, Wild resumed Gaborik negotiations. Subline, with several talks behind them, the team and the player's agent will continue discussions in Los Angeles, California. All right. And Wild assistant general manager Tom Lynn and agent Ron Salcer, the infamous Ron Salcer at this point, will meet in Los Angeles over the next few days to continue negotiations toward what the Wild hopes is an eventual contract extension to right-wing Marian Gaborik's contract. And a quote, "We're both trying to push the process forward," said Lynn, who flew to California late Tuesday. I sure hope they are, as right now this is a very tough situation. Gaborik, of course, intrigued with the idea of signing with maybe a more offensive-minded system. As Jacques Lemaire, as mentioned a quadrillion times, is not an offensive-minded coach. And, we're all curious, including Marian Gaborik, as to how he would perform in such a situation at this point in time. Gaborik, the Wild's all-time leading scorer, who is entering the final year of his contract, said last week he's willing to stay in Minnesota, but he's also aware his options include becoming a highly coveted unrestricted free agent next summer. Indeed, folks. And the Wild is hoping to sign Gaborik to a long-term extension in the $8.5 million a year range. And yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's absolutely fair. How much more could he possibly want at this point in time, being he has been injury-prone? And, he's not exactly eclipsed the 100-point mark. Of course, the question always comes in, again, is Jacques Lemaire truly holding this young man back when healthy? As last year he eclipsed the 80-point mark, the 40-goal mark, and all that good stuff. So that is the tough position right now. The article continues, it's possible negotiations will continue into training camp, which begins September 19th. So we're all looking forward to that here in Minnesota, the great day of September 19th. Anyhow, I continue. But at some point soon, the Wild must know concretely whether Gaborik is willing to sign or not. If he's not, the Wild likely will investigate his trade value before the season. And yes, that is an option, folks. Unfortunately, it could come to that. It really could, because you can't let the guy walk without getting some type of compensation. This is not Major League Baseball, where you get draft picks for, say, Torrey Hunter when he took off, or Johan Santana, where, well, they traded him, but I mean, you know what I mean. Quote continues here, Tom Lynn. There will come a time we're going to want to know what's happening, but we haven't set that time yet, Lynn said. We'll see how things go. Right now, we're worried more about what we're trying to do, which is signing Marian. That's our primary goal. We're putting all our efforts there. And that's pretty much the deal right now. A lot of people believe in this town that Marian Gaborik is unhappy with Jacques Lemaire, that he thinks there's a possibility that Jacques Lemaire believes that Marian Gaborik is tired of Jacques Lemaire's style. Tired of Jacques Lemaire needling Marian Gaborik here and there. One game, Gaborik's playing tons of minutes. The next game, all of a sudden, he's not getting any opportunities at all. Another thing that could be frustrating is Jacques Lemaire can constantly change his lines. He never really puts people together. And how about this? Mikko Koivu and Marian Gaborik really have never played together. And that's $1 million question as to why. To me, the best line on the Wild, that would be just a great chemistry thing, and of course, a common sense thing as well. Mikko Koivu, Marian Gaborik, and Andrew Brunette, I think that would be a phenomenal line. Every one of them can score. Of course, Brunette is a fantastic chemistry guy. Koivu is as well, and Koivu also is a very nice defensive player. Gaborik is an okay defensive player. Brunette is decent. But Gaborik and Brunette, of course, mostly passers or scorers. Gaborik, the scorer of the three. That's the situation we are at right now in Minnesota. Just hoping and praying we can sign Gaborik. But right now, you know what, folks? It's 50-50. I have no idea. I really don't know what is going to happen in this situation. You just got to hope and pray that history repeats itself, because we were in a standoff in 2003, 2004. Gaborik signed. The good part is, though, in that situation in 2003, 2004, when Gaborik held out, well, he wasn't signed. He was a free agent at the time, or not really a free agent. He was a restricted free agent, so he couldn't play without a contract. This time, he does have a contract, so if he's not signed, and yet there's still a good chance we could sign him in the coming month or so, that Gaborik will be able to at least suit up. We won't have one of those holdout deals where he'll come in and in November again and not be the same player because he's just totally off from sitting out, basically, because that was not fun at all. But that's pretty much where we stand. Nothing majorly great to report at this time other than they are negotiating now. Before the last time we did this show, they weren't negotiating. It was just still kind of conversations about hockey. About, you'll still be able to score just as much here as you would in Ottawa. I'm not 100% convinced of that, and I doubt Marian Gaborik is either. But with that, we're going to conclude this segment, and we're going to get into some other Wild news right after this announcement. Here on thesportstuff.com, get on board the Viking ship with Purple Mafia. We will talk about the new Purple People Eaters and the best running back in the NFL, Adrian Peterson. This team is ready to make a move forward. Purple Mafia is available on thesportstuff.com along with iTunes and MediaFly. Simply download and listen to the most honest and passionate Vikings coverage. And we are back here on Brave the Wild, and the commercial you just heard was about Purple Mafia. Of course, the Minnesota Vikings podcast. The one before that, of course, I didn't even bring up Timberwolves Explosion, your Timberwolves basketball connection. So those are my two podcasts. Do check them out. Timberwolves and Vikings podcasts available on thesportstuff.com and iTunes, as I'm pretty sure that not every single one of you only likes the Wild, that you like the other teams as well. So I cover all three, not the Twins. TC Talk is the Twins one that is done by Andrew Gottsman here on thesportstuff.com. Now I got that out of the way, and let's get into some Wild news other than Marian Gaborik, because he's not the only player in this team that matters. Here's some kind of good news anyway. Kurtis Foster is back on the ice. Defenseman Kurtis Foster, who had a devastating broken leg last year, season-ending broken femur. Defenseman Kurtis Foster stepped onto the ice Tuesday morning in Minneapolis for the first time since sustaining a season-ending broken femur March 19th in San Jose. After months of grueling rehab, Foster said Tuesday he was an important step toward an eventual return to action sometime this season. He skated gingerly for 40 minutes. It felt good, Foster said. I'm still a long ways away from playing, but it felt so good to be out there. It wasn't pretty, but I'm excited. And you know what? That is good news. That is very good news that this guy is finally able to at least skate again. We wish Kurtis Foster the best. He was a pretty valuable guy for this team when healthy, as he has a very devastating slap shot. He was pretty much a shot-in-the-dark signing a couple years ago. The kind of guy you don't really expect to really bring much. Now, as you know, Kurtis Foster is a very large individual, 6'5", 235. He was a second-round pick by the Calgary Flames, 40th overall in 2000, 40th overall pick in the draft. So they saw something in him at the time, but it didn't really work out too much. He finally got to play a couple games in Atlanta in the years 2002-03 and 2003-04, only 5 games in that time, getting 1 assist in those 5 little games. But then all of a sudden winds up with the Minnesota Wild in 05-06 after that awful lockout, amassing 28 points. A nice coming-out party. Unfortunately, this guy has missed playing time pretty much every year, even though he would be a regular in the roster. But yeah, only 58 games played in that first year here, 57 the next year, and 56. So he declined a game a year. I don't think he'll play 55 games this year. It's probably going to be less, because they're just saying sometime this season. That could be any time. Unfortunately, his points declined as well, as of course 28 points that first year, 05-06, 23 points the next year. He dropped from 10 goals to 3, by the way, but his assists went up to 20. And then last year he got 19 points before that awful injury. But yeah, he played about as many games as the previous years, so numbers declining, playing time declining a little bit, a little more depth in this team as time goes on. But still, Kurtis Foster is the kind of guy you want around. He's a nice offensive weapon. He's actually a pretty good defenseman as well. He's not just offense. A strong individual guy. I'd like to have him back. Wish him a speedy recovery. But now also another defenseman on the Minnesota Wild, who is also looking for recovery, or is needing to recover. I didn't even realize this was going on until the article came out. Brent Burns on, this happened about a week ago, about September 3rd or 4th or so. Brent Burns got a sore elbow fixed. There's a little article here. Brent Burns was feeling back to normal Thursday night. He was at his Lake Elmo Park Reserve at home watching the TV show Big Brother, so we're happy for him. Doesn't really matter there. But overall, Brent Burns is expected to miss, about 4 weeks. 4 to 6 weeks or so with this deal, as they needed to remove loose particles from his elbow. Again, something I did not know much about until this article just popped in out of nowhere. Wednesday's MRI showed he might get through the season, but he might not if it gets worse, Lynn said. So we decided, let's get it done now, so we make sure he can play and not miss time. Now, of course, that was last Wednesday, but that's what the quote says. Now, Burns is talking here. The way the doctor explained it, everybody has stuff in their elbow. It's like when there's a rock in your shoe and you don't feel it, Burns said. It's just stuff that has moved now, and I'm feeling it. I've had no range of motion in the elbow, so, yeah. It's a good thing he got this thing fixed, folks. Now, as said before, Burns had elbow pain last season and into the playoffs, but it became irritated when he returned to the ice again last month. Still, Burns didn't think it was serious and continued to skate through Wednesday before seeing orthopedist Joel Boyd later that day. So yes, it says here that Burns, arguably the Wild's best defenseman, underwent surgery Thursday afternoon, so that would be the 4th, to remove loose fragments from his left elbow. The team expects Burns to miss 4 weeks, as I mentioned before, but he expects to be back sooner. Burns, real quick here, says, I've always been a pretty quick healer, said Burns, still jittery after his first operation ever. It was something that probably didn't have to be done, but I'd rather have it done now and miss this week and next week rather than 2 weeks in December or January or February. Agreed 110%. Glad that got done. It would have been nice if he could have done it even sooner, because you know what? Training camp's coming. Training camp's starting in on the 19th. So hopefully he will be okay and ready to go. He expects to be back in only half the time. I've heard that before. It doesn't always work out that way. hope for the best for Burnsy. I know I thought that too when I had a cyst removed from my wrist. I thought it would take about me a week or so. It ended up taking about twice as long. So that was fun stuff. And I'm not exactly a wuss myself. No. Of course, Brent Burns isn't one, that's for darn sure. But now we got a couple other little news items here. First of all, the former Gophers defenseman, Keith Ballard. Remember him? Keith Ballard, a really nice Golden Gopher. He is now with the Florida Panthers. He signed a 6-year extension on Tuesday. Ballard was acquired by the Panthers in June from Phoenix in exchange for former captain Olli Jokinen. The 25-year-old has appeared in 233 games, all with the Coyotes. The extension starts with the 2009-10 season. Terms of the deal were not disclosed, and of course they say that all the time. And I mean all the time. But yeah, so I brought this guy up because, yeah, you know, Minnesota ties. A lot of Wild fans are probably Gopher fans. Not all of them. But he's had an okay career thus far. Better start than of late. He's played 3 years in the NHL so far. In the year 2002, he was drafted 11th overall by the Buffalo Sabres. Of course, wound up with the Phoenix Coyotes in a trade soon thereafter. But yeah, he finally got to play in the NHL after the lockout and played all 82 games, 39 points. Great start to his career. I remember being pretty excited about that. Unfortunately, the following year, 27 points and then 21 points. He played all 82 games last year, but 21 points. So numbers declined each year. We hope for the best for Keith Ballard, the Baudette, Minnesota native, that his numbers will increase this coming season with the Florida Panthers, his new team. Now, one other defenseman signed. This guy is not exactly 25 years old, folks. In fact, he's just about double that. Are you ready for this? The Detroit Red Wings re-signed 46-year-old defenseman Chris Chelios for 1 year on Tuesday. Chelios enters his 25th NHL season and his 10th with the Red Wings. It's already been 10 years since Chris Chelios has been with the Red Wings. Man, remember when he was on the Chicago Blackhawks? Shucks, a lot of you probably even remember with the Montreal Canadiens, as it says. He began his career with the Montreal Canadiens and also played for the Chicago Blackhawks, as mentioned. Last season, he became the second oldest player in NHL history to appear in a game behind Gordie Howe, who, of course, came back for no reason when he was like 50-something. Man, oh man, oh man, oh man. That is just unbelievable. Chelios has 948 points in 1,616 regular season games. What an amazing run for Chris Chelios. I cannot believe he's coming back again. I can't believe it. And he's still the kind of guy who can stay healthy. I mean, look at 81, in his last 3 seasons, 81 games, 71 games, 69 games. So he's still playing. It's not like he only played 30 games. Though he wasn't on the playoff roster last year for the Detroit Red Wings. I figured that must mean it's the end of the line for old man Chelios. But no, I guess not. They brought him back again. So we'll see what happens. Will this be Chris Chelios' final year? I mean, you thought it was maybe, about 8 years ago? What a career by this guy. Absolutely amazing. But with that, we're going to conclude this segment, and we will get into our final segment where we will discuss the polls on thesportstuff.com. We'll be back after this.
What's up, listeners? This is Farzine. I am the host of the Chiefs End Zone Show right here on thesportstuff.com, where we cover the Kansas City Chiefs, give our opinions, and go deep inside with the Kansas City Chiefs right here only on thesportstuff.com. We encourage you Chiefs fans, you loud Chiefs fans out there, to get on the show, voice your opinions, get on our boards, and talk with us. All listeners, including Bronco fans, are allowed in our show. So be sure you check out the Chiefs End Zone Show right here on thesportstuff.com with me, your host, Farzine.
And we are back here on Brave the Wild for our final segment. It is time to talk about last week's polls, or not last week, but last show, episode 1. Now, the question for this poll was, but first and foremost, again, I encourage you to sign up here on the message boards on thesportstuff.com, as this is the idea to bring you on board here and interact with this show. That way you can vote on these polls and be a part of things, as the slogan here on thesportstuff.com is, don't just watch sports, get involved, and I encourage you to do that. And don't only vote, but post a reply also. Comment. Make some type of comment as to why you made your selection, as it just adds to the show. Your name will get written on air unless you just flat out don't want it to be, and just write, do not put on air. That's all you have to put to make it simple. Now the question first was, what will happen with Marian Gaborik? There were 4 choices. 1, Gaborik will sign long-term before the season. 2, Gaborik will sign long-term during the season. 3, Gaborik will wait out the season and sign next summer at the last second. 4, the Wild will be left with no choice but to trade Gaborik, realizing he wants out. And your responses come to, well, Gaborik will sign long-term before the season, 66%. The other 33% all go to Gaborik will wait out the season and sign next summer at the last second. My choice was he will sign long-term before the season. Yeah, that was when I did the last show. Right now, I don't know. I should have put a I don't know button, because that's about what I'd be pressing. I hope that little prediction works out okay. We have 1 week to go. Well, it's not 1 week, but 1 week before training camp. We have about 3 weeks to go before the season, as the season starts early October. I believe October 3rd, yes. It's going to be very interesting indeed to see what happens with this guy. Only 1 comment, so I encourage you out there that are listening, please comment, please interact with me. SJ Steelers fan, San Jose Steelers fan, San Jose and Steelers fan, also known as Chris Porter, he's a big hockey fan, of course, being the Sharks fan. His comment is, they got to get this done before the season starts, or I don't see Gaborik back for the Wild. I hope they can. He is the franchise, like a Sid Crosby. Enjoy the first one. Hope there is plenty more to come. Enjoyed the first one, sorry. Yeah, great to hear that, Chris Porter. I'm glad to hear that from you. I appreciate it. And, yeah, here it is, episode number 2. So, hi. Hope you're enjoying this one as well. That's the end of that poll, unfortunately, as now poll number 2 has begun. It's a very simple one. The question is Jacques Lemaire holding back Marian Gaborik? Yes or no? Unfortunately, I say yes. Ever so slightly, though. It's not like the worst ever, but I think he's holding him back a little bit, and I'm curious to see just how good he would be if he was in a more offensive-minded system. Maybe if the Wild had a more offensive-minded coach. So with that, we are going to conclude episode number 2. I enjoyed it very much. I hope you did as well. And I'm going to wish you a great week or so. Training camp is a-coming, and I can't wait. It's going to be time to talk some training camp hockey next in episode number 3. And until then, take care.